Hello and welcome to Warblock. Today, looking at the Battle of Chipyong, Korea. Essentially, it was a major defeat for the Chinese forces. It was described as something as significant as some other event. I can't remember now, but I'm not sure how it will pan out, and I'm not sure I've really sort of completed it to its fullest. It's been sat there for a while. I'm not going to play the whole thing through, but I'm going to have a little sort of go at the start. It's quite interesting in the sense that it was sort of a grand stand. The Chinese forces attack, North Koreans, whoever they are, they attack, but they don't really have much in the way of heavy weapon support, or mortars, or tanks, or anything like that. They attack at night, and they're repulsed, and they lose a lot of men doing that. The UN forces, and basically the Americans, have retreated after another major battle. So they've retreated sort of south, and then they've sort of basically taken up this ground, entrenched, dug in, and then the North Koreans have essentially amassed everything that they can to attack them, and they make several sort of assaults on all fronts, and fail. I haven't sort of just read it. I just feel like having a blast in the game. So, well, there's the sort of the Wikipedia, obviously, and there's the map. You can see the sort of the attacks coming from every side. It's a couple of days, 2-day battle. Let me just read it. The Battle of Chipyong, also the Battle of Dipingli, was a decisive battle of the Korean War that took place on the 13th and the 15th of February 1951 between the American and French units of the US 23rd Infantry Regiment and various units of the Chinese People's Volunteer Army (PVA) around the village of Chipyong, present-day Yipyong-ri. The battle, along with the Third Battle of Wonju, has been called the Gettysburg of the Korean War. That's what I was sort of saying, and I guess it's the Gettysburg because of the Lee's grand assault across 2 miles of open ground at a really slow pace. So presumably that's what they're referring to, but also maybe not necessarily just that. It describes it here as a high watermark of the Chinese incursion into Korea. Due to the ferocity of the Chinese attack and the heroism of the defenders, the battle was also called one of the greatest regimental defence actions in military history. So, quite a lot to even pick up on that. Obviously there's a bit more to it, but in the grand scheme of things, Wikipedia-wise, there isn't really that much. Day 1 is there, day 2 is there. So, let's put this to a side so maybe I can refer to it. But I don't want to spend too long doing this, and I'm not going to do a whole video. I just feel like getting at least the start of this video. I mean, just for the record, I will just annotate it just quickly. Not so much for the record, but obviously you're taking on every side, because this might be the screenshot or something like that. Now, I think one of the reasons for the failure of this is, so there you go, there's the sort of the arrows. One of the reasons for the failure of this, I think it states it basically, well, I'd have to read that through and have a real think about what it was, but they didn't have the firepower to do that kind of frontal assault. I can't see. I should really pay my attention. I do intend these videos to be long-lasting, insightful narratives on the historic events, but I generally just sort of just play it like an idiot. But I think the first thing I thought, well, when I'm playing this, and one of the things that sort of also is, again, it's just I'm always learning, and I think that's a critical thing about what this whole platform means for me. It's always sort of learning, just even getting to the Battle of Chipyong and understanding it, and realising that there are things I don't understand is a learning curve. In fact, I was just thinking the other day that quite a lot of these videos, you sort of think, well, just talking a load of crap, and but when you play them back, like a year later or something, and you completely have no idea what it's about. The videos are quite useful, you know, and just even explaining some of the basic things. But I can't remember what I was going to say now. Anyway, so essentially, the thing that I sort of thought, well, what I'm going to do sort of first with this would be, other than sort of actually trying to define where I'm going to attack. Now, you're going to attack everywhere, but what I'm trying to get to here is, well, let me just get the tool out. All of these units need to be split out. So there's 3 units in that stack, I believe, so we could sort of put them there, there and there. Split those up there, there and there, and we could do that, there, there and there. Now we might want to put them both into there. Basically what I'm trying to say is, slowly, somehow, build up a line. Now that line is a line straight across there. That's a line straight across there. So we're sort of building up these lines of force, but also essentially trying to establish and coordinate what we've got. Now this is artillery with 5 range, 1, 2, 3. So this is difficult for these people, but you know that they can get a line like that, possibly, well, at least like that. But what I'm sort of saying is trying to expand things. Now they're going to get some artillery fire as they go in, which is again one of the things that was a problem for them. It seemed to me that when they did march in, they had when they basically retreated at light. Yeah, they retreated at light. As daylight approached, the Chinese knew they would become vulnerable to air force strikes, and at 7:30, a Chinese bugler blew a call to withdraw. Wikipedia has an interesting picture of the battle. I think it's quite an interesting picture because it looks like the front of a one of those sort of do-it-yourself model kits. So you get all the soldiers and the tanks. I mean, what's this tank doing? Is he sort of, you know, I mean, is that tank really a platform for this 50 cal? Or maybe it's only a 30 cal. You know, explosions. I mean, what is that tank doing like that for? But look at that, it's quite a dynamic and exciting picture. So that's that picture. Let's sort that out. So I think the thing to do, first thing in this game, really, is to sort of organise the units, so to speak. And now they're going to come under artillery fire straight away. So it really is a sort of system where you've got to get sort of close. Now I'm aware that these units are quite far away, and they're probably only going to move 1 a turn. So they're 1, 2, 3. It's going to be 4 turns before they can attack. And these ones are weird to attack in 3 turns. 1, 2, move into there and then attack. 2, 3. So they're not too far off. So whether we wait until these ones are at the same range, you know, is something else. But the other thing that just to say is, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but if you actually look at these units, they have I've gone into the thing now. Basically, I can't remember what it is, but this is the 42nd Army Group, 39th, and this should be the 39th and the 40th. So we've got the 39th and the 40th and the 42nd. I think the 42nd has the full complement of the Army Group, which is basically a sort of brigade or division. But there's possibly one missing. It's not so much there's one missing. They have all of Army Group. Let's just have a look at what we've actually got. Let's just go into this proper look at the order of battle. They've got all of the 39th, which is 1 regiment, 2 regiments, 3 regiments, and then they've got 2 of the 40th. So they've got the 119th and 120th. Now there is a 118th or 100. There is a 118th Infantry Regiment of the 40th Army Group that I have not included because it says all of, basically the Wikipedia description says all of the 39th Army Group plus elements of the 40th and the 42nd. So on the 42nd I've got 2 of them as well. So there's the 42nd, we've got the 124th and the 126th. And that picture in the Wikipedia does actually specify sort of who goes where. So what I'm sort of saying is if you start to look at that specification, it's possible that of the 40th, there were 3 regiments. Possibly from the 39th, there might have been another regiment. Well, I don't think so. I think each army group had 3 regiments, and I've given each army group had 3 regiments in it, and so there they are there. So each army group had 3. Each army group had 3 brigades, which I've given 3 regiments to each. So this one has obviously the 3 brigades that I'm talking about with its 3 regiments. So what I'm saying is the variation on that could be slightly different. For example, there could be 4 regiments per brigade. So as I said, the 118th Brigade is sort of missing from here, which could have more infantry, etc. And I've not given them anything else other than infantry. So there's no armour and there's no artillery. It doesn't specify that they had artillery. And now, when it comes down to things like mortar fire or very close infantry mortar fire, I consider that to be all part and parcel of the battle, as opposed to what I would say more organised, larger calibre mortar fire from a greater distance, which would be a mortar unit. But basically, they don't have any indirect fire, and so we'll see how it works out. Let's just see what I can get back to my game. So essentially, as I said, what I'm going to try and do first is, so that's pretty much as far as they can move. Just try to spread out. Okay, so got some artillery there. I think there's some in there. So 4 pieces of artillery. I wonder if I could have done anything there. I didn't think of that. Wouldn't have made a huge amount of difference, but they're in contact. So let's see what we can bring to bear on them. Oh no, it's still the Chinese turn. So let's see whether I can do some attrition here. No. Okay. So it's now the UN turn. Well, we can bring 3 lots of artillery on that. 0.1 damage. 2.2, that's what we need. 2.9. Well, that's bad. And we can maybe do some attrition. Yeah. Now I perceive, essentially, 0.3. I perceive essentially that the artillery thing is going to do damage to these Chinese units. So bearing in mind, I could say that I'm down a regiment, and I could also say that these regiments are under strength. Now, I've deliberately sort of put them under strength, and I've deliberately done the numbers like this, but the balance subtly could be adjusted to make the Chinese attack stronger. I mean, for example, we've already done significant substantial damage to that. I mean, they could rout after coming that close, but we have targeted most of our artillery onto them, and so that balances out to be sort of possibly understandable. But I'm not going to do any movement in here because I want to sort of flick quickly. Okay, so the Chinese can now make their assault here, and I'm going to see what I can do against this stack here. I'm not even going to think of the odds because, oh, what are they? They're going to be 4 doubled up in hills to 8 times 3 for the fortification, so it's going to be 8, 16, 24. So we could get maybe a 1-to-1 on this, possibly a 2-to-1, I don't know. I'm guessing a 1-to-1. And then exchange. Now I'm quite happy with that sort of odds because that's sort of what's sort of happening in this assault. I mean, now we could possibly get greater odds, but that's how that has panned out in that instance. Here, we've got the option for going up against that or that. I think we're going to go and try here. Oh, 1-to-1 and attack or retreat. So that's sort of, again, this could be some result of that first day battle. You've got to remember that this is described as the watershed and the Gettysburg of the war, and what else did they describe it as? Overwhelming losses. What was that last one? It was the greatest defensive defense of the ever in history. Wikipedia describes it. This is an interesting one. On the 20th of February, Sergeant First Class William S. Sipman, a machine gun section leader in M Company, was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for bravery during the battle when he threw himself on a grenade to save 5 of his comrades. It's amazing I can't find things that I just read. I just read it out. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's described as one of the greatest regimental defence actions in military history. So this is what we're seeing here. So bearing in mind that this attack, which we did against that little stack there, resulted in an attack of retreat. This was an exchange. So we've had 2 historic events pan out, and we're almost on the verge now of having these next waves come in. As I said, we could possibly do with some more, because I think it's quite... The thing with these games is that once you start to get these sorts of results, there's not really much scope for recovering. It's quite difficult, especially when you've got all this artillery. And I did double the artillery up, to be quite honest, because I didn't think there was enough, but maybe there's too much. But the thing is, these were both 1-to-1s, and they could equally well have gone the other way. We could be occupying that hex now, we could be occupying that hex, and as a result, we could be sitting there thinking, oh, well, this is too easy. I'm pretty sure you could play this again and again and get fairly significantly different results. And again, I mean, it's not something that I was really thinking about, but it's possibly to some extent reflective on the fact that when these combat results go through, they are done on a 1-to-12 result and not a 2d6. 2d6 is sort of commonly used because you get a significant average between, it's a bell curve, whereas a 1d12, you're as likely to get 1 as you are a 12, and I like those broader variances. We've got a 12 and got an attack of a tree. 12 is quite hard, but I'd much rather have those sorts of dramatic results, because they're not necessarily a simulation, it's more an explanation of the variance of possibilities, and because of that we need greater access to those variants and not to find them sort of quite remote and unusual. So that's sort of why I do that. It makes the results more dramatic from a point of view of finding things out about what could have happened, as opposed to sitting there and playing it again and again, coming out with a statistically average result. So, that said, I think it's safe to go on. Oh, what do we want to do here? So he's got depression 5.2. I'm going to leave him to release recover, and he is going to try and do an attrition. 1.8. Well, that's good. So an attrition attacks might be the way to go. I mean, if that's what happened. Okay. So, well, we're going to try. I hate it when that happens. Going to try and get a route on that. 1.2. So back up to 5. 1.6. So now on 7. 20% chance of routing, plus whatever we get here. Nope, they're still there. And we'll do an attrition. Maybe this will do it. No, unsuccessful. So, they've taken a real pounding. In fact, they've pretty much taken the only damage in the whole game. But they're on the last legs. So, we've got some more artillery over here. Oh, I should put them up to a 3 now. Yeah. Okay, and we're not going to move anything around. Not at this stage. Or should we? We've deliberately got some reinforcements here. So I think I'm not going to apply them yet because there's no real threat. So, next Chinese move. Let them recover. This might be a 2-to-1. An exchange on a 1-to-1. Let's go for an attack there. I'm going to let them recover again. Exchange. We've had a lot of 1-to-1s with just exchanges. Hopefully this will give us a DR. No. But the thing is, I think a 1-to-1 isn't necessarily a 50-50 chance. I think if you're attacking on 1-to-1, the chances of success are skewed in are a lot lower. I think. I can't remember. But anyway, obviously it's not working. You know, we've been up against these lines and been repulsed, just like in real life. That's it's interesting when things sort of, you know. I'm going to do some attrition here. And what have we got here? Exchange. So they're defending on 24s in there. And here, go for an attrition. Right. Well, that is a phenomenal simulation of the battle, I think, so far. Very exciting. I mean, it's sort of, I think, I'm tempted to give the North Koreans or the Chinese, as they're described here. I don't know what I called the Chinese, I thought it was North Korea. Oh, it's the North Koreans supported by the Chinese, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm tempted to give them an extra brigade, or to put their 10s up to 12s. That's a lot of hard work because I've got to go through and do every unit, but I really would have to do every unit as well. But possibly just to make them a bit tougher. But really, I'd have to play it a few more times really to sort of to try and make that variance. Because I think once they get in there, you know, once we can get one of these, it would be a very different game. But once they do actually start to do that, they can start to consolidate by putting 2s into each one of these, and I think it would get really tough, you know, exceptionally tough. I mean, these guys have now dug in because they've been doing nothing, and they've recovered now to 7.2 from 8.2. But I mean, the only benefit to the Chinese on this is that they have essentially taken up all the artillery fire so far. I mean, but it's pretty much all gone on them. They're still there after 2.6 damage, and they routed. Okay, so we've finally done some proper damage. So let's see what's next. Get 2 artillery lots onto that. And let's go for some attrition. Oops. Some attrition. Unsuccessful. Okay. We'll get some attrition against that. I think what the Chinese and North Koreans really want to do is to get in there and get that artillery as soon as possible. No result. No result. Results. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. We've got this one here. No result. Okay. Chinese. They're not finished yet. Not by a long shot, really. But each one of these is 24. We've got there. Now what I'm going to do here, so if he's worth 24, so he's worth 21.6, that would be about 2 to 1, 1 to 1, 2 to 1. I could possibly get about 3 to 1 on that. I think I'm going to have to. What I was thinking is actually leaving one of these units out so that I could advance, and I think I will do that actually. I'm going to leave this unit out of the attack. Depression 1. Actually, I'm going to leave this unit out of the attack because he's already at half strength anyway. So if it fails, at least he'll recover. But if it succeeds, he can advance. This is possibly one of their best chances. 2 to 1. Did everything right. If that had come through as a success, I would have 2 to 1. I think they've been exceptionally unlucky so far. Now here, what I'm going to do is move into here and attack here. But before I do that, which one? It's the one I just moved. So, this one here, I don't know which one's which now. That's interesting, I can't tell. So I want to make sure that I attack with this one. But I don't know which one that is. But he's got no depressions, and this one has. So the one that's got a depression doesn't want to be attacking. The one that's got a depression doesn't want to be attacking, which means that one. Is that what I said? I can't even follow my own logic. So we should have another 1 to 1 here. So hopefully we should have some success. No. Because I messed up. But that was a good die roll. One to two. A 2. That was a good die roll. One to 2. Another good die roll. The odds are just not there. Oh, that's bound to happen eventually, isn't it? Okay. Well, I don't want to play forever. I think it's a fascinating game. It's one of these games that I sort of think, oh, I want to start it again now and see if I can get something. I mean, I feel I've been exceptionally unlucky now. I've done that in other games, and I mean, what we could do is call this day 1, and then just sort of retreat everyone back, or we could say this is 2 days, or whatever. But I think that's quite an interesting reflection of what happened. I think I'm going to adjust it slightly to give the Chinese a little more power. I might remove this second battalion because it's essentially the same as these, but that's actually quite powerful. So I think I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, really, it's an interesting game, and you know, if you go back to that, you know, these descriptions, you know, the Gettysburg of the Korean War, the high watermark of the war, and you know, one of the greatest regimental defence actions in military history. You can maybe sort of possibly see why, but obviously the mechanics of this game are really what's defining the mathematical outcome of that, as opposed to anything else. But I think it's sort of, I think it's doing the trick. It's elevating that suspension of disbelief to quite a comfortable level. I think the thing to do would be to really target the artillery. Once you got the artillery out, then it would come down to sort of attrition fighting at the very worst. Because once the Chinese get into these sort of entrenched positions, they will themselves be better protected and much harder to shift. So again, the defining factor here that I find quite interesting, along with a lot of other games that are defensive in nature, is that you at no stage looking to sort of demonstrate a counter, you know, the ability to counterattack and do damage with a counter-offensive of any sort like that. You're just sitting there hoping that when they hit you, they hurt themselves more, to the extent that, you know, we've attacked here, and I think got 2 attacker retreats here. We've got another attacker retreat, quite a few exchanges. You know, the attacks themselves, the attackers have hurt themselves more than anything else. I mean, here they're still relatively healthy. It's Depression 4. Depression 4. Depression 4. 3. 3. 3. 2. 2. You know, 4.15, 4.2, 2.5, 2. So it's not over yet, but they don't, you know, for those levels of depression at this stage, I would be expecting them to be holding something. And again, it was a North Korean defeat, so you know, I don't think we can really expect too much more. But I think it differs from a lot of these other miraculous defense type games, where the numbers are not really conducive to reflecting that. I've done a few. For example, there's one where a sort of marine company, you know, they make an amphibious landing across. It's one of the British Malaysian things. I can't remember. I think it's the Brunei crisis. It might be the Brunei crisis, or something along those lines. Brunei something or other, Brunei emergency or something. They basically storm across a small channel in some boats. They lose this element of surprise, so the defending company, or defending 2 companies, you know, are ready for them. They fire their machine guns as they come through on their boats. Their boats sink and they have to swim the rest of the way, or something like that. You know, they suffer hardship after hardship and they still win. And it's impossible to reflect that because, you know, once you start to do a marine landing on a beach against a fortified company, the odds are just sort of too great. You know, even if they've just got 1, they're up to sort of 5, and so you're attacking on a 1 to 2, and so or 1 to 3, and you've got to, you know, you've got to sort of roll. Well, you can't roll, you can't win on a 1 to 3. All you can do is get the exchange. But all I'm saying is they're so difficult that it becomes a different sort of game. But here, it's actually more conducive to the numbers for that kind of defence to be demonstrated. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Hope you find that interesting. You know, obviously with a lot of these videos I go and make changes afterwards, so you might find that the game's slightly different when you come to look at it, but nonetheless you might feel, oh, I really want to give that a go because it looks so interesting. You know, feel free, you can sign up and pay your shekels, and you too can be, you know, an incredible military commander with you know, and win medals and stuff like that, just by playing on your browser through Warblog, etc. So anyway, I'll speak to you later. Cheers, bye.